Hello everybody, I am so happy to be in this space with you sharing one of the most amazing topics. Where does the universe come from? Since men developed the brain, we haven't stopped thinking, where does all these marvelous things that we have around come from? Who created the sun? Was there somebody outside that created all this? Well, some religions will say yes. Science will say no. It created itself. But let's see. My idea with these talks are not to persuade you to believe in anything. What I want is to put outside some information, and perhaps you have more information and you can write me or you can discuss with me, and then we have a bigger perspective. We can see the truth or many truths from different angles, and then we decide what to believe. Okay, so science and ancient cultures both had a method to study the universe. They, through observation, through measure, through mathematics, through astronomy, and through many different ways, they study the universe and they reach many things that are common. And out of these studies, some myths were created because it was important to share with the rest of the public, with the mass that didn't understand all this knowledge of the privileged people, but that they understand what was the origin of our universe. So that's why the myths and the religions created stories so everybody could understand. One thing that all of them have in common is that at the beginning there was nothing. There was darkness, emptiness, it was void. According to the Sumerian tablets, that is the oldest or the most ancient record written from our civilization, it was like 6,000 years ago written and recently translated. There was a chaos, but chaos understood like a great gasp of darkness, of nothing. Also, the Greeks are going to call these a chaos because the Greeks come from the Mesopotamians and the Mesopotamians from the Sumerians. So basically all the myths of these three cultures are very similar, just with different names, but similar deities and gods and with similar, let's say, forces that created itself. Well, the thing is that at the beginning in this chaos there was only one thing, and it was consciousness. A great nothing, but something that was already alive. The agnostics are going to call this the mind. So there was this mind. And you'll say, how can something come from nothing? Well, Stephen Hawking will say, yes, the universe created itself. And there is like a lot of people that are thinking so. Stephen Hawking say that God is not possible or something. Well, at the end of this, you will decide. So it created itself, it has no fixed laws, and actually it is very imperfect. That's how Stephen Hawking defines it. It is imperfect, so we have an imperfect universe. The Toltecs will say that there was a big mind, something that was called the Moyotoyami. And this Moyotoyami is defined as is to itself the one who creates and transforms itself. Because out of him was possible to create the other things. In Hinduism, that even though it is a polytheistic religion, they also started from something, from one great thing, the soul of the universe, how they call it. And I'm going to read this to you. This is taken from the Rig Vedas. The Rig Veda is a script in Sanskrit, very old, like around 1200 before Christ. And this text has a chant that expresses the following. Then was not non-existent, nor existent. There was no realm of air, no sky beyond it. That one thing without breath, breathed by its own nature. Apart from it was nothing whatsoever. The gods are later than this world's production. Who knows then whence it first came into being? He, the first on this creation, whether he formed all or did not form it, whose eye controls this world in highest heaven, he barely knows it, or perhaps he knows it not. So we can see that even Hinduism describes one thing, but we're not sure if he knows that he rules, that he created, but there was this thing, this consciousness. And this consciousness one day decided to experiment, decided to say, okay, what will happen if I express myself in another way? Who can I become? And when he had this first thought, becoming something else, expressing himself in a different way, was the seed of the creation. So it expanded its consciousness and it created a movement because it expanded something. And with this movement created a vibration. And this vibration emitted a sound. This sound and this vibration was like so much pressure that created the light. This, for example, in the Bible says that it was like a thunder, or here in Hinduism it says that it was like a breath, but there was a sound. And this created the light with the pressure, with the vibration. And then energy was created. And it is the first time that we have two things separated. We have the light and we have the darkness. Remember that previously everything was darkness. And this originated the duality, the concept of duality. I'm going to read how it is described in the Bible. And it says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." And this is fun that they say waters here, because the first atom, according to science, was hydrogen. And hydrogen is one of the molecules or one of the basic elements that come from water. The Egyptians, basically the Bible is taken from the Egyptian myth that we're going to see later. And it was like the god of the waters or something that they describe like gas. Hydrogen was in the form of gas, like as the first substance. And then it says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness." So if you see, since the beginning, since the origin, we have a duality. Two concepts, light and dark. And these opposite forces, female and male, we also can call it the purpose and the mission, the creation and the destruction. This duality, these opposite things, are the ones that allows life, that allows creation. So the Toltecs say that this world, basically, it's a world of duality, because since its origin was conceived like this. It is important to say that we cannot have any negative connotation to the duality. There is a biological reason why humanity considered the dark as something bad, because when we were the men at the caverns, we could only work and be safe during the day that we could see, but at night we had to hide because there were predators around. It was not safe. It was not a safe environment. So we started getting afraid of the dark, and we had to hide and we had to protect ourselves. And then the religions started saying, okay, so if you believe in God and you behave well, you go to heaven. Where is heaven? At the light. So it is up. And we have another concept, another different concept, up and down. So if heaven is up and lights come from the upside, then down should be the bad side. And additionally, the men went out during the day looking for knowledge, and women hide into the caves, making rituals to the moon and all these things. Well, not hiding, but like this was like their place. So we started also relating that the female was not good because it was dark and at night, and the male was good during the day and at the sun, at the light. So we have this since very, very long time, and later religions also try to make this concept even stronger. Also the Bible says, "And to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply this sorrow and the conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he should rule over thee." So if you see, even in the religion, there is already something that says that men should rule over women. So from this point, there was not balance. Because in order for the universe to be in balance, we need that both forces of creation have the same importance, that they are balanced. That explains a little bit why our actual world is full of injustice or of things that doesn't vibrate good. Okay. So here it's important to say that both sides teach us. There is no one side that is good and there is one side that is bad. We actually need to experience both in order to know the reality in a better way. And these polarities are in movement. As we explained, the first consciousness decided to expand itself, so it refers to a movement. And they have, one goes around the other one goes around the other one, all the time, going behind. And in this movement, they started creating experiences and information, and they advance. So the best way to explain this is like if there is a man that is walking towards a light. Every time that he gets closer to the light, his shadow is bigger and bigger and bigger until he reaches the light. He's completely covered all by his shadow. So this is the way that the universe pushes us back to center, back to the unity. We need to come back to unity, to rethink the things, to balance. And in this movement, we create two concepts, time and space, which describes our reality, the reality of this universe. For example, for the Western traditions, we're going to say that space is when you move from point A to point B. So time is a line. In the Eastern traditions, we're going to say that time is a circle. Because you are born, you live all what you have to live, and then you die, you come back to the same place, and then you have the opportunity of reincarnate and continuing in circles, no? Like the samsara wheel that is described in Hinduism. Well, the truth is in the middle. It is not completely a line and it is not completely a circle. What happens is that there is a spiral. So the duality goes, separates, and the force of love brings them back together, and then they learn from their experiences and they come back to center, learn from their experiences, come back to center, and they continue advancing. And in the process of advancing in this spiral, they are increasing the knowledge, increasing the wisdom, and they are time is moving, because you are never the same person from the point A to the point B when you end up. So this is the difference of conceiving the time and the space. And the force that brings them back together, back to unity, is love, is the magnetism behind. So we're going to see that the myths and the religions and the science don't talk too much about, well, science is talking about the magnetism and they call it gravity. So we need to know that there is not only energy as light, vibration as sound, but there is also a magnetic force that is called love or gravity or something that is the one that put everything together. Okay, now let's take a look to science. Science tells us that the origin of the universe was the Big Bang. The Big Bang was an explosion, or that's what we learned in school. Before the Big Bang, we really have no tools to measure. The laws of this world don't match with that part. And additionally, the theory of relativity has to match with the theory of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and let's say that the scientists are very busy working on that. Others say that the Big Bang was not an explosion, and if it was an explosion, it's still happening nowadays, because now with the Hubble telescope that is outside the Earth, we can see many galaxies that are appearing and disappearing, and planets and stars. So the universe is growing and it is still expanding. But here comes another paradox, because if the universe by definition is all what it is and it has no boundaries, no limits, how can it grow? Well, it grows within itself, and it has expanded billions of kilometers in diameter. So these are the mysteries that science still needs to know how to explain, or the wonders of the universe. After the Big Bang happened, it was not that immediately the matter was created and then we start seeing the planets and the stars and everything. No. The universe entered in something called the Dark Age, which was a period where there was only these atoms of hydrogen or these gases there, and nothing was happening. But after a period of 200 million years, gravity started calling them, putting them together, these atoms, condense them, until finally all this pressure, all this force moved the atoms. They couldn't hold it anymore, so they just made the light, create the light. And with light, also matter was created. And here we have two concepts, the concepts of matter and antimatter. So there was a subtle world and an energy world before the matter existed. And we can't see with our eyes the antimatter, but there were things that were there. Millions of atoms that occupies all what we consider empty space, but now it has been proven with the theory of the Higgs field that there is no empty space. There is a lot of energy, atoms moving around, creating thousands of possibilities. And there is another theory that is called the string theory that says that the mind that is looking at these atoms affect the atoms. So the field, the environment, and the mind that focus on them alters their reality. So it is very difficult for the scientists to study this without affecting it, without affecting the particles. So we have this antimatter, and we also have the matter after it was created. And here is where the things get very interesting, because it's where the science get together with these traditions. And we can explain this through sacred geometry. So let's see how it works. At the beginning, there was only the consciousness, or this thing, but we know that it was alive and it was of a great intelligence, according to everything, and it was in the darkness. And it decided to expand its consciousness, or to think, what can I become? So it created a sphere. And within this field, it moved. And with this movement, it decided to repeat it and say, okay, what else can I become? It expanded consciousness again, and now we have two spheres. So the first, the initial, with the second one. And in between, we have the basic apices, which is a concept very interesting that I really encourage you to find out what it is, because there is a lot of geometry and things and wisdom behind it. And it has the shape of an eye. So from this third eye, or from this perspective, it was possible to see both of the experiences. And then we create the third circle, and with the third circle we have the Trinity. This is a very important concept for our third dimension, because this is how we conceive the world. It was not only spirit, but also soul, and now we have the body. Or we can say vibration or sound, energy and light, and now matter. So this trinity allows the possibility of manifesting in time and space. And I'm going to explain you how. After the consciousness created 6 circles, and this match with the version of the Bible that says that God created the world in 6 days, the flower of life was created. And the flower of life, or the cube of Metatron, explains how the energy creates all the shapes and all the matter that exists in our world. If we go to see in 3rd dimension, this flower of life, it is exactly the same as the egg that it is produced when the sperm reaches the egg of a woman and it starts the cellular mitosis. And then we are going to create this egg with these spheres. And if from the center of each of these spheres we connect the dots, we are going to obtain a cube. So when we create the light and the light moves in the trinity, we have this. This is called the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron, you can see it here. The tetrahedron is the element of fire, of light. And then, in order to have matter, here we still have no matter. We need to unify them and have the cube. And the cube is earth, is a substance that creates all the universe, all the dimensions, all the matter. So these figures are called the Platonic solids. And they have many characteristics that are exactly the same. And there are only 5 shapes. And one gives the birth to the other one, and they start getting more complex. For example, the next one is the octahedron that is represented by the element air, and it is like 2 tetrahedrons, one on top and one at the end, that has all the faces the same, all the angles the same. Then we have the water, element of water, with the icosahedron, and then we have the element of ether that makes the universe with the dodecahedron. So with these shapes that were very, very sacred, as sacred that in the time of Plato and of the school of Pythagoras, if somebody mentioned the dodecahedron outside, he could be killed, because this was like knowledge only for certain time of people, explaining the order of the universe. All these shapes try to reach the sphere. The sphere is where you have faced the reality with all the angles touching the outside. So every time this is closer to perfection, closer to perfection. Actually, the dodecahedron is like a soccer ball. So in 1980s, the professor of the University of Chicago called Robert Moon proved that the Platonic solids are in everything, in all the elements of the periodic table, which means that in all the matter that we know in this universe. And according to the theory of the sacred geometry, those shapes and those elements are needed before creating the matter. So they have to appear, and they start from the duality, later from the trinity, and then they create. They become what they want to become. So this is very interesting. And so the matter was built out of these forces, and then solidify, they condense. So let's see what the religions and the myths say about the creation of the matter, of the planets, of the stars, and the other elements of our universe. So, for example, in Hinduism, we have also, even though it is polytheistic, as I mentioned before, they come out from a principle of unity, and it was Brahman, like an energy that created Brahma, Lord Brahma, the Lord of creation, and he had two sons, Shiva, the Lord of destruction, and Vishnu, the Lord of preservation. With this duality, with these two opposite forces, they are going to create the rest things of the world. We also can see in the Greek mythology, for example, that everything is that great chaos, that it was basically the darkness. And out of it came Gaia. Gaia and other brothers. One of the brothers was Eros, the god of love, with this force. Gaia had Uranus. Uranus is the name of a planet. So let's say that we started creating matter with this. And Uranus had also, with Gaia, different children. He loved to have the power, so he was not treating well his children. And one of them was Cronus, who didn't like this and decided to take the power of his father. Cronus is the god of time, so we have now another element here, very important, time. And he also had children. He also feared that these new generations of God were going to take his power, the same that he did to his father, so he decided to eat his children. But his wife Rhea wasn't happy with this, so she decided to make a bulk of stones and give it to Cronus as if it was his last child, Zeus. But in reality, they were only stones. So Zeus grew up, and when he grew up, he gave venom to his father Cronus. He died, and he vomited all the children that were harmless, Zeus' brothers. And Zeus took a time and a lot of battles with his cousins, with everything, to rule finally the other gods. But he reached it. And if we see, the characteristics of the other gods were also forces of the universe, or concepts of this creation. For example, Hades, one of Zeus' brothers, was the ruler, the god of the underworld, of the dark side of death. And Poseidon was the king of the waters, of the sea, of the oceans. So we see that there are elements and there are forces, the ones that are part of the mythology. Also, let's see in the Egyptian gods. There was one force or god that was Num. Num was the cosmic liquid. And that's because of the Bible comes from the Egyptian mythology. We know that the reference of waters that is mentioned in the Bible has to do with this cosmic liquid mentioned for the Egyptians. And then Num created Atum, that is the god of creation. And Atum became Ra, the sun god. So these three are the same being, but that is able to transform itself. So according to the Egyptians, the Ra has the possibility of transformation, of birth and rebirth after death. There are many different myths that talks about the creation of the world for the Egyptians, because it depends on the historical period and also depends on the area that tells. But they all say that Ra has these three qualities. Also, Ra gave birth to Isis, Set, and Nephthys and Osiris, which are gods that also have this duality, because we can see Isis, feminine, and it is the god of love and the goddesses of love and compassion, and we have Set, which is the god of destruction. Then we have Nephthys, the god of death and protection, and Osiris, the god of agriculture and resurrection. So is this contrast of this pool of opposite forces in all the creation and in all life, even today. Then I would also like to explain the Toltecs. For the Toltecs, they have this main force, Zipactli, which had the shape of a lizard, and it was only one spirit. And this spirit is present in everything in the creation, and everything is alive if it's part of this creation. And he gave birth to Ometeotl. Ometeotl is represented by 2 because it is the number 2, and they have very important mathematics to explain all these processes. And also, so there are 2 beings that represent the male and the female, the opposite, the contrast, the creation and the destruction. So these Ometeotl, the 2 gods that represent creation. And they had the 4 Tezcatlipoca, which are their sons or their children. And they are the 4 directions, north, east, south, west, or also the 4 elements, water, air, fire, wind. Like all of the forces that allows the things to be created. And then comes matter, with Tezcatlipocas did. One of them was Quetzalcoatl, the white Tezcatlipoca, and we also have the black Tezcatlipoca, which is the one in charge of the lucid dreamings and in the inner world and of the darkness. But this is not, it has not a bad connotation. It's not good and bad. It's just opposite forces. So now let's talk about how to go back to unity, because we saw that the reality cannot be in one of the polarities. You have to go back to unity with these things that you are experiencing, but at the end come back to the center. So science says that our cells are made of the matter of the stars. So everything, we are connected with everything. The unity is the only place from where we come, and is the only place that we are going to. This is called the journey soul. Basically, we are here, or every living thing is here to experience, to see the world, to know that God is within itself, and actually bring all that knowledge, bring all that wisdom, and evolve. And we can have many opportunities and many ways of expressing ourselves, but with the different angles, with the different experiences, is how we reach this bubble or this sphere, which is at the end what we want to create. We need to transform, and the way of doing it, we had been in this reality to focus on the external world. This reality is all outside, so in order to balance, we need to go back inside, let's say to the feminine part. And if we receive the energy through the left and we give the energy to the right, and the middle point is the heart, one way, or the way that the Toltecs propose, is opening the heart. Going into the darkness, closing your eyes, getting within, and from that point, you can create again, create a different reality if you are not happy with the world that you are looking, that you have created around you. This can only be done really experiencing unconditional love. This is a concept difficult for us because we think that unconditional love is to go outside and love everybody, love others. And this includes all the ways of life, not only other humans, but animals, plants, elements, everything, because we are all connected. So we think that by loving others, we are having the conscious of unity. But it starts by loving yourself, because you are the one that is expressing all that. And by loving yourself, you're able to love others. And how you can love others is with compassion, but not compassion like the pity that you can feel for another being. No, the compassion here is with your own passion, showing into the world those characteristics, those skills, those abilities that you have, expressing yourself, because this is what wake up others. When you can reflect, they can see the reflection of your beauty, of their own beauty inside. So that's what you have to do. Go out and do more of what you like, of what makes you happy, and that's how you will shine. And that's how you reconnect with your center, and you have a better creation of your reality. So every time that we see in others the reflection, the idea is not that we judge them, that we say, oh, this is good, this is a bad aspect. No, it's an opportunity for me to grow. The other thing that we have to do is definitely forget all what we know. To come back to unity, we need to forget, because our mind is full of concepts, especially this one of the duality, saying that seeing the world in black and white, seeing the world with the bad and with the good, instead of integrating everything. So just to finish, I want to read one thing that the Toltecs say. This is taken from the Awakening of the Sixth Sun, from Sergio Magaña, and it says, when the sun is absorbed by a black hole, all light will go to shadow, and from it, new light will emerge in an eternal complementary movement. So this is the cycle, our universe, in the same way that it was created, as Stephen Hawking said, from a black hole, it will end up in another one. The sun one day will be extinct, and who knows what will happen with us, but the energy, our energy, transforms into something new, into something better. So we decide if our life is worth it to improve and to contribute to what comes later. So we cannot be like the goddess, like the gods of the Greek mythology that didn't want the process, the new generations of gods to continue ruling. We have to accept that, and at the end, just be part of the flow. This we're going to explain much better in the second episode, that it's called How the Universe Works. So see you next time. I hope that you like it. Please write me or let me know what is your opinion, and see you soon. Remember that only with your intention of being a better person, you are already transforming the world. Thank you so much. Bye.